for everyone for coming along today. So today's workshop is about how company directors can save a huge amount of tax by rethinking their company car strategy, and we'll be looking at some car deals with the help of Apu Bias as well. Right, so let me just go on to the next slide. So today's workshop, what we're going to cover is we're going to learn about what the traditional problems of owning a car while within a limited company structure was, and an explanation of the recent changes that have taken place. And we're going to have examples of potential tax savings that are now available. How this strategy is a part of our Magic framework, which you can use to generate extra cash and profits in your business. And we're going to be looking at the current deals that are available and the costs involved. Okay, now you are in the right place if you are the owner of a limited company. You use your vehicles to support your business, or your team use vehicles. You want to know if you are currently being the most tax efficient you can. And you're interested in making better profits from your business. So by all means, say hello in the chat box and tell me what made you come along today and what you're hoping to take away from today's workshop. Okay. So at the end of this webinar, which should last about half an hour or so, we're going to be giving away some bonus sort of materials. So I'm going to give away a taxability checklist, which is 71 strategies to help you slash your tax bill. Basically, it identifies key areas related to where tax opportunities may be available, corporate and personal, and I'll just wait until the end of the workshop and I will tell you how you can get a copy of one for yourself. So just we're going to be covering quite a bit in this workshop, so do close your email down, close the multiple browsers that I'm sure you've got open, close the doors, get rid of the kids should be at school, so that shouldn't be a problem, but yeah, just get rid of all distractions and we can get the most out of this if we can. So I'm joined today by Apu Bias from Planet Leasing, and he'll be talking a bit later about the current car leasing options and what is currently available. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Chaz Rupra. Yes, I'm an accountant, but this wasn't always my career path. In the early days, I was actually an IT engineer and I worked for a small managed service provider in the city of London. Now, during my time there, I used to work I used to work quite closely with my sort of boss, and I noticed generally the problems that he used to face running his business, which was, he was a techie basically. He used to love solving problems for his clients. He used to love dealing with the sort of the technical aspects, but really he struggled with the demanding clients who could suck the blood out of him at times. He struggled to define his value, so a lot of the time his clients were price sensitive, and he didn't understand the financial aspects of running a business. His accountants seemed to speak a foreign language, and he seemed to be doing it all alone, had no one to turn to for real business advice and support in making those difficult decisions. So to cut a long story short, once I decided to go back into my accountancy career, one of the main reasons why I wanted to start work was to help people like my old boss. So initially started working for a large firm, then moved on to a small local practice. During that time, I realized a lot of the accountants there that help their clients with tax filings and the accounting side of things, just keeping them legal and compliant, there was little in the way of what we call business advice support, how they can actually help their clients make more profits and create better businesses. So over the years, I decided I wanted to make a bit more of an all-round advisory service and developed what we call the Magic Model. And this is based on the cash flow quadrant. For anyone that's familiar with the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, written by Richard Kiyosaki, I think that's how you pronounce it. Now, anyone who isn't familiar with that, I will explain this graphic a little. So the left-hand side shows, so basically there's 4 ways to produce an income in the world. The left-hand side shows where 95% of the population are. So you might start off as an employee. And when you're an employee, you're basically going to work, working for your boss, and you're exchanging time for money. The more work generally you put in, the more time you spend at work, the more money you probably get. And eventually you probably think, okay, I've learned the job, I could probably do this myself, get my own clients, that's what I'll do. So you move over to the self-employed. Okay, and in the self-employed, obviously initially you start up and you're looking to sort of build your business. So you're acquiring clients, doing a lot of marketing and just basically taking on clients. Then eventually, as you get clients, you get more and more busy in the operations side, actually delivering the work, and the marketing, the client acquisition side gets a bit neglected. Now, again, your time is limited and you end up getting so busy that you become, time becomes a factor again because you've got no time to do every part of the business. Your time is limited and you end up owning a job. So being a worker in your own business, really. And again, because time is a limiting factor, the money is limited. Now, if we move on to the right-hand side of this graphic, this is where 95% of the world's wealth is generated. And it's generated by 5% of the population. So the idea is to try and move yourself from the self-employed to the business owner section. And this means the business not being reliant on you. You take yourself out of the business and it's reliant on systems and people to run those systems for you. So systems and processes and people to follow those. And in that regard, your money is not limited. Even if you're a silent person or you're not in the business, the money is still ticking over. And that's the whole concept of that. The next level on from that is being an investor. And that's where you basically completely step out of the business. And you might just check it every so often, but basically it's a silent investment. And, you know, that's really where you want to be. But very few people actually get to that level. So now when you first start up in business, you're in basically survival mode. So your main worries are, what's the best structure for you? Make sure you're tax efficient, make sure you're legally compliant, make sure you have enough work coming in, and you need to make sure that the work's done to satisfaction. And if that's all your concerns are, then your accountant who's probably handling the compliance side of things, the year-end returns, keeping you legal, is probably enough, and it's probably going to serve your needs quite well. Now, if you want to move up to that business owner level, then your problems become slightly different, in that you need to increase profits because you've got to create the systems and you've got to employ the people to run those systems. And that's where your pricing and your efficiencies come in. You've also got to obviously increase efficiencies to get that profitability up. And generally you have to step away from the business and be more of a conductor to monitor and improve areas. Eventually, you'll want to scale it by taking on people. And in the end, if you crack all those, then you end up at that top level, the investor level, where you can semi-retire, follow your dreams, or follow your other business assets, business interests. That's when your machine is built, basically. And that's where either you might have business coaches, mentors, or accountants that actually specialize in business growth areas. So we help create better, more profitable and more enjoyable businesses. For example, John Garto Office, we helped him analyse areas in which he was falling behind, put in action plans, gave him the tools and resources to get the results he needed. Or like Asif Patel of Maptech IT, classic case of being a technician. Rather than the business owner, services not valued, pricing wasn't quite right. Now he works with the right clients, right price. He has systemised his business that allows him to scale to new premises and staff. So our approach in helping our clients has got us an entry into the Business Owners Guide to the UK's Best Accountants. If you really want to, you can actually get this off of Amazon. But anyway, that's enough about me. So let's move on to the next part of the workshop. So earlier you saw the slide about the tax savings available with company cars, but let's just see how this fits into the overall framework. Now, a set of accounts, generally you start with a set of accounts which might be sort of quite familiar to you. So you've got your turnover, you've got your supplier costs, you've got your team costs, which gives you gross profits, and then you've got your overheads. And this leaves you with your taxable profits, after which you are left with what you can draw out of your company. Now, the interesting thing is when we start to break down the accounts a little bit more. So initially, we can have a look at how your turnover has arrived at. And generally, that's going to be the number of clients you have and the average fee income that you generate from those clients. We can then break this down further into how you acquired those clients, number of inquiries that you generate, your conversion rate, and how many might drop off each year. These are the items that actually drive your profit, and they can be divided into 7 areas. We call these areas the 7 profit drivers. Making small and consistent improvements in these areas can have a combined effect on your profits. To give you an idea of this, a 3% improvement in each of these areas can have a combined effect of 40% to your profit. So it has like a substantial effect, which is accumulated. And we call this the magic framework, basically, which stands for marginal accumulated gains implemented consistently. And that's how it fits in. Now, if we have a look at where what we're looking at today fits in, so we're going to be looking at the last wealth driver, which is the wealth protect driver, which basically means tax efficiencies. And of course, this is the area that most accountants will help you in your business. Now, what I would recommend for you guys to help you in this particular driver, is a 3-step process. Number 1 is ensure your accountant has access to real-time information using cloud software. There's various softwares out there that can help you implement real-time accounting. Get a pre-year-end review done by your accountant. So basically look at the company and personal tax positions and what the potential liabilities are, and have a discussion with them to see what can be done for the remaining few months to ensure you're most tax efficient as you can be before the year end. It's all about tax planning. So the key is planning has to be done before the event rather than after the event. Now, all accountants will have their own method, but we specifically use a software platform called Taxability. And within that, we follow our process, which is initial fact finding. There's further questions, which pinpoints available tax strategies, which the accountant can then discuss with you. So one of those strategies is going to be around company cars, which is the subject of our workshop today. So what we're going to be covering is the tax implications of company cars, recent changes and developments, how this might benefit you, and current leasing deals that are available. Now, when you have a car registered to the company with some personal use, this gives rise to something called a benefit in kind. These are taxed in order for you to stop replacing your salary with another benefit, i.e. in this example, a car. So HMRC still class this as a salary payment, so therefore they want their income tax element out of it. The way they work this out is by a combination of a list price of the vehicle and the CO2 emissions. Now, to make this a bit easier to understand, I've just got an example up there. So we'll use the example of a £50,000 car. Okay, now that is a list price, so just bear in mind, even if you bought that car secondhand for 25k, HMRC will still take the list price, the brand new list price, which is £50,000 for this computation. Okay, now with that like car, you're likely to have a benefit percentage of 37%, and you're likely for the company to buy the fuel as well, which gives a fuel benefit. On the assumption that you're a high rate taxpayer, your personal tax is likely to be around about the 11k mark each year. In addition, your limited company will be hit with employers' NI. So you will be saving some corporation tax, but because of this particular car, you'll be restricted at 6%. So overall, if we look at the overall position at the bottom, having this vehicle in the limited company will cost you about 10k in tax each year. Okay, quite a lot of money. And for that reason, the recommendation was always to use MAPS or mileage allowance payments, where you have the car personally owned and then you charge that back to your company at 45p a mile for the first 10,000 miles and 25p thereafter. So the strategy was to keep the car outside of the company and then charge the company back for mileage. Now, in recent years, there's of course been a drive towards green energy, and the government has been giving tax incentives. And there were tax incentives for electric cars. However, the problem was always around the choice of vehicles being a bit limited and the range before requiring a recharge being not that great. Good news is, in recent years, the major manufacturers have brought out a range of cars in terms of their desirability and the range they can do before you have to recharge them, or the number of miles they can do before you have to recharge them. So let's take this time the example of the electric car for the same list price that we looked at earlier. So £50,000. Okay, on the left-hand side, you've got your petrol diesel. On the right-hand side, you've got your electric vehicle. Okay, you'll notice the benefit is 1% on the electric vehicle. This gives a car benefit of £500 only, and because you aren't buying any or getting the company to pay for any fuel, there's no fuel benefit. Personal tax is just £200, an employer NI just £69. And the big one is you can offset 100% of that first year purchase price against the company's profits, which means in this example, it'll give you £9,500 of corporation tax back. Okay, so the overall position of personal and company is there's a £9,300 benefit. Now, if we compare that to the petrol one, where you're paying out basically in taxes £10,000, then you can see that there is a huge difference between the two. So in summary, next time you are considering purchasing a car, then it's probably worth considering getting an electric one and registering it to the company. Okay, now that you know the tax benefits, you're probably thinking, what can I get? How much will it cost my company? So this is where I pass over to Apu, who will cover some of these questions with you. Okay, Apu, you want to unmute yourself and just let me know when you need me to change the slide.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chaz. Yep. So I work for Planet Leasing, and I have done for several years. Our head office is Leigh-on-Sea. We've been going for about 15 years, although between the directors and some of the people that work in there, we've literally got decades, if not centuries, of experience within the car industry. And we're quite a big company. We've got several offices throughout the UK. Some of them are franchised, some of them are owned by head office. We've even been on TV. We've been on a couple of reality shows as well. If you met our directors, you know they're quite quirky and they're characters in themselves. So in essence, we are a vehicle brokerage. So, and we've got probably tens of thousands of happy clients, which we've got all via word of mouth and networking, etc. We haven't done any real advertising, the odd social media post, etc. Next slide, please, Chaz. So just to clarify what a vehicle broker is. So manufacturers make their cars, they make their vans, and they want the end consumer to buy them. Now, traditionally, the way the market has gone is private companies set themselves up as dealerships sometimes, or historically it used to be just for one manufacturer. So for instance, Glyn Hopkin originally went to Datsun or Nissan and said, we'll sell Datsuns and Nissans for you, etc. And that's how people used to get their cars, used to go to dealers. But if you think about other things that you may do in your life, let's look at mortgages, for instance. If you went to Barclays and say, what's the best mortgage deal you could do for me? They'll tell you the best mortgage deal that Barclays can do. But really and truly, you would go to a mortgage broker that would be able to look at the whole of the market. And that's where Planet Leasing sits. We're vehicle brokers. We've got access to the manufacturers to get the vehicles directly. And then the finance companies, biggest finance companies in the UK. So we get not only as good deals as the dealer groups, we probably, quite often, in many cases, we get better deals than them. We don't have their overheads. We don't have a multi-million-pound showroom or lots of support staff to pay for, etc. And again, exactly the same cars, same warranties, same choice of options. etc. Next slide, please, Chaz. Okay, so just very quickly in terms of why people should consider leasing, because that's what we specialize in. I would like to say we do other finance products as well. If Chaz or your own accountant suggests a different product, then we'll be able to do that too. But most of what we do, hence the name Planet Leasing, is leasing. And as Chaz has mentioned, there are tax benefits to doing so. There's several other reasons why you should consider leasing. There are generally lower costs. You don't have, if you've got a brand new car, you don't need to do MOTs for the first 3 years. Generally, maintenance is lower anyway. In terms of technology, if you went for a 3 or 4 year deal, for instance, you can change the car frequently, and therefore you've always got the most up-to-date vehicle or type of technology on the road, which especially when we're talking about electric and the technology and the range, etc., is changing almost daily, then it's worth keeping that in mind. I mentioned the maintenance ease of it. As I said, in the first 3 years, there's no MOT. It's just the servicing that's due. You don't need to worry about depreciation. You don't need to worry about how you're going to get rid of the car at the end, whether you need to sell it, if someone's going to come around, start kicking your tires. It just goes back to the finance company. If you wanted to, we can include the insurance as well. There are some salary sacrifice schemes, etc., available. Again, if your accountant recommends those, we're more than happy to talk about those as well. Next slide, please, Chaz. Okay, so the biggest question is going to be whether you go for petrol or diesel, electric, or something in between, a hybrid, plug-in hybrid, etc. There is no definitive answer to that. Yes, the tax benefits, especially if you're a limited company, will heavily weigh towards electric, but I would also ask you to consider other things that might be important to you, your time, for instance. So if you're someone that's regularly doing 200-300 mile journeys, do you really want to be planning your route to always include filling up or topping up the electric, etc.? Your time will probably be worth more than that. What I wanted to really get across to you guys on this is when you have a conversation with me, I will find out what's best for you and then recommend accordingly. I'm not, if you went into a dealership, for instance, and said to them, I'd like an electric car, they'd say, yeah, sure, sir, which color? I'd ask why you need to use it and determine if it is the right thing for you. So you may have several different vehicles within the organization. For some of them, petrol or diesel might be better as well. Just don't eliminate that as a possibility altogether right now. Next slide, please, Chaz. Okay, so the benefits of electric. So Chaz has already mentioned some of the tax benefits, and these are huge. If you're a director of a limited company, in fact, this is a conversation I am having with directors of limited companies right now, is you need to consider electric. It is cheaper for you. Some of the other reasons, there are lower running costs. There's very little that needs to happen in the service. The fuel at the moment, yes, it's gone up for both petrol as well as utilities for electric as well, but it's still about 75% cheaper to cover the same distance in an electric car compared to diesel or electric. Sorry, diesel or petrol. There's no congestion charge. If they expand the ULEZ zones and there's any kind of consideration for electric on that, that's there. Some places already give free parking to electric cars. Obviously, you're greener, you're doing your bit for the planet, you're saving the baby polar bears and the baby pandas. They'll all be eternally grateful for you on that. And it's not just lip service, it's not just a small bit that you're doing. What the manufacturers are doing with any of all of their electric cars, etc., they're using recyclable materials. They're also trying to offset their CO2 emissions by either planting trees, buying tax credits, etc., to make sure the world is a greener place for doing that. If any of you have driven an electric car, you'll know I think it's amazing. It's like being in a fairground ride. You've got the acceleration without any of the noise. It's just amazing driving. And I know people that have fallen back in love with driving again. Sometimes I've got one particular director got an electric car. Within a week, he told me his wife prefers driving his car and therefore he needs another one. And lastly, corporate social responsibility. So referencing the green and the environment, etc. Again, lots of companies, they need to show that they're doing their bit, not just for the environment, but for the society we live in, etc. Pollution that comes from petrol and diesel costs the NHS about £5 billion a year. So by getting an electric car, you're reducing that severely. So another reason to go for that. Next slide, please, Chaz. Just before I talk about some of the cars, I just wanted to, if you do sort of shop around, if you look at websites, etc., just wanted to make sure you understand what you're seeing. So this is a Tesla Model 3. It's the current model. It's a £46,000 car, so very similar to the example that Chaz gave previously. If you were to lease it, we're flexible in terms of how you structure the payment. So one method might be that you pay no initial payment and you have 3 years, 8,000 miles. It's a true real life example. And then so the monthly fee is £607 a month plus the VAT. And the overall cost is going to be just under £22,000. If you decided, and this is where some finance companies and a lot of the companies that advertise will not trick people, but they'll kind of try and hide the true figures, is they may put a large amount down at the beginning, and that may suit you, but you can see what that does. So in this instance, nearly £6,000 as an initial payment, and the monthly drops to £465 plus VAT. So you may see £465 and think that company is cheaper, but like I said, you do need to look at the total cost, which is exactly the same. And just as an aside, a report that came out yesterday, and again, another reason perhaps to consider a vehicle broker like myself would be, if you went straight to a dealer and they would normally offer you a PCP deal, and the PCP deal you could see is much more expensive for this car. This is from Tesla's own website. You can look at the figures yourself. Is much more expensive than a deal that I could do you on a lease. And just to bear in mind, though my figures don't include VAT, if you did include the VAT, you'd still be over £2,000 cheaper or better off than if you went direct to Tesla and did a PCP. Next slide, please, Chaz. So I'm going to deviate a little bit away from what Chaz wanted me to say. Sorry, Chaz. I could talk about deals and I could talk about prices, but that's only going to be relevant to you if it matches exactly not only what you're after, but also how you may want to structure your payment. So what I'd like to do with this bit is just sort of show you or tell you there's a lot more choice with cars out there, and the range is, on the whole, it's improving hugely as well. So many of the reasons that people haven't gone for electric cars before, for instance, is range anxiety. They're worried that they may run out of run out of juice, and then not be able to charge their car. As I've tried to make clear, I'll be talking to you about your usage, etc. And if you do regular long journeys, I wouldn't go for something like the Smart there, which is only for short city drives, really, and has an 80-mile range. The VW and the MG on that page both have ranges of about 300 miles, so they would suit people much better. Next slide, please, Chaz. What you find is most people, on the majority of people, will tend to do short journeys. And in that case, range becomes less of a factor. In fact, it's more convenient. I have a mini plug-in hybrid. It only does 20 odd miles on electric, but I love it. I don't go to a petrol station because most of my journeys are just short journeys. Go and drop the kids off to school, go and collect them, might pop into the office. It's a few miles at a time, and I very rarely need to fill up petrol. And as I said, that's most people's common usage. In terms of the cars, these are some of the higher end cars you can get. There's a Porsche there, there's a Mercedes, there's the Audi, top of the range Audi e-tron as well. In fact, their range is all quite good. All the cars on this page have over 200-mile range, which again, for the vast majority of users, for the vast majority of times, this will suit you perfectly. There are some other kinds of cars you can get. There's a whole variety of them to all kinds of budgets. There's vans as well. I'm doing a lot of electric vans now as well. Again, if it suits. So a lot of delivery drivers are taking, you may have noticed the Amazon and DPD drivers, there'll be sign writing their vans with the green logos showing that they're electric too. So it works for many more people, and the infrastructure is improving all the time. Next slide, please, Chaz. Oh, that was it. That was me.
All right. So
if you've got any questions, I think Chaz will give you my contact details afterwards. Thank you.
Yeah. So exactly. So if he wants to follow up, then I'll put the contact details up on the presentation at the end. But anyway, let's just move on. So thank you for that, Apu. So today we promised to cover the traditional problems of owning a car within a limited company structure and an explanation of the recent changes. We looked at examples of the potential tax savings that are now available. We looked at some of the costs that Apu mentions that are involved in leasing, and how this is part of our sort of framework model in looking at the tax element of our framework. Okay, right, so what I want to do is, just as a thank you for attending the webinar today, I'm just going to give you a sort of bonus offer and some extra help if you are interested with some of the areas that we have looked at today. So over the next week or so, I'm going to be offering you a personal strategy session. So whatever your biggest challenges in your business and any of the areas that are covered by the 7 profit drivers, we've probably come across them before, and we probably know how to help you in them. So personal strategy session. Now you might be thinking, what's covered in this strategy session? Is it worth my time? Why is it being offered? So I'm just going to take a minute to just explain that. So what we're going to initially do is establish where you are in your business, what you want to achieve. We're going to assess the potential increase that you can get from your profits by making small changes in key areas. And we're going to look at which drivers are likely to have the greatest effect on your profits. We're also going to dig deeper into one of these particular drivers, which is the one of how you convert your prospects into customers, and if you have the 9 core elements in place. So we'll even provide some feedback on your current methods if you wish for us to do so as a critique. We'll also go through what we call a business excellence scorecard, which is basically a list of recommended things that you have placed in your business, and see how you score there, and it'll identify areas that you can improve on. And we'll also run through a software taxability diagnostic with you, identify key areas specifically related to where tax planning opportunities might be available, and the tax saving strategies that you might be able to use. So just to summarize what I'm offering now, so we've got the individual elements which are priced individually. Okay, the 5th one here is the potential gains that you can make. So if you mention a tax strategy to you over the lifetime of your business, it could be worth £10,000. If we mention a profit improvement strategy, even if it makes £500, £1,000 different a year over the lifetime of your business, it could be worth £10,000. So this meeting could be worth £11,000. We're offering it completely no cost. Okay, what's the catch? Why am I doing this? Well, I think accountants generally have been getting away with it a bit too long. A lot of us sort of turn up at year end and we do your tax returns and your accounts, file those and hit you with a big invoice. So we want to offer much more in the way of helping you improve profits and cash in your pocket and helping you create the business that you want. So I would like to readdress this somewhat on behalf of the whole accountancy industry and hopefully give you some ideas that you can take back to your current accountant with, and obviously have a discussion with them. So who's this perfect for? So if you think you've been on a bit of a treadmill in your business, you're working hard, but not quite going in the direction you want to. You're working hard, but not generating the profits or the cash that you'd like to, and you'd like to enjoy more free time out of your business, or actually just time to work on your business rather than being so busy sort of in it. So you can, by all means, if you want to have a look at some of the results that we've helped our clients with, there's a few videos on our website which you can have a look at some of those results that we've got. But just to make you aware, this strategy session is by application only. I've only got a few slots available, so if you're interested, it will be offered on a first come, first served basis. If you are interested, just put a yes in the comments box and I will contact you later to agree a suitable time. But you just have to do so today so I can pre-book for the coming week. Okay, right. So if anyone has any questions, then feel free to put into the chat. If while you're doing that, we have Apu's details there. So if you wish to discuss the leasing options and the car options a bit further, then please make a note of those details and feel free to give him a call.